Hey guys, hey everyone. Am I audible? If somebody can confirm that.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sir.
First of all, a very happy Makar Sankranti to all of you. And First of all, a little bit a brief about me. So my name is Rohan Sharma. I have been working in the ML domain since past 2 to 3 years. Like I started with it in my college second year. Then I have also done a few internships. One of them was a research intern. Then currently I'm working as a computer vision intern at Crimes Labs. I have also published a research paper in the same domain. And my main area of focus and work is computer vision. So without further ado, let's dive right into the session. First, let me clear it out a few things. This session is not a course, it's not a lecture, it's just a discussion. And the main goal of today's session is to get all of you guys interested towards machine learning, right? Let's start. And one more thing, whenever if any one of you has a doubt, just feel free to interrupt me in between. And because I want this to be a two-way conversation. It's not a lecture where I will be teaching and there are all like 40-50 faces. So it shouldn't be like that. So now let's dive right into it. First of all, machine learning. Machine learning is basically a different kind of programming. It is programming, but it is a different kind of programming which was not available to us a few years back, maybe a decade back. So as of now, the rise of machine learning has created a revolution, and also more and more people are getting interested towards it, but they don't know like how to start or what is it because of so much hype around it. Everyone want to get into machine learning, but they are not. They don't have a clear idea about what it is. So that is why Google AI has brought this explorable program to clear all the doubts and to get more and more people interested into machine learning. So let's start. First, we'll be starting with this video about what is machine learning. I'm starting it. Just somebody please confirm if the audio is visible, audible or not.
Our ability to learn and get
Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Audible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's audible, sir.
through experience is part of being human. When we're born, we know almost nothing and can do almost nothing for ourselves. But soon, we're learning and becoming more capable every day. But did you know that computers can do the same? Machine learning brings together statistics and computer science to enable computers to learn how to do a given task without being programmed to do so. Just as your brain uses experience to improve at a task, so can computers. Say you need a computer that can tell the difference between a picture of a dog and a picture of a cat. You could begin by feeding it images and telling it, this one's a dog, that one's a cat. A computer programmed to learn will seek statistical patterns within the data that will enable it to recognise a cat or a dog in the future. It might figure out on its own that cats have shorter noses and that dogs come in a larger variety of sizes, and then represent that information numerically, organising it in space. But, crucially, it's the computer, not the programmer, that identifies those patterns and establishes the algorithm by which future data will be sorted. One example of a simple yet highly effective algorithm is to find the optimal line separating cats from dogs. When the computer sees a new picture, it checks which side of the line it falls on and then says either cat or dog. But of course there can be mistakes. The more data the computer receives, the more finely tuned its algorithm becomes, and the more accurate it can be in its predictions. Machine learning is already widely applied. It's the technology behind facial recognition, text and speech recognition, spam filters on your inbox, online shopping or viewing recommendations, credit card fraud detection, and so much more. At the University of Oxford, machine learning researchers are combining statistics and computer science to build algorithms that can solve more complex problems more efficiently, using less computing power. From medical diagnoses to social media, the potential of machine learning to transform our world is truly mind-blowing. To find out more about machine learning, visit oxfordsparks.ox.ac.uk, follow us on Twitter, and find us on Facebook.
Yeah. So now, any one of you, like, just tell what your idea of machine learning is. What do you think machine learning is? Anyone?
It's basically self-reinforced learning. So like computer like reads thing and just does it again and again over and over again. Like if it's doing right, the score like goes higher. So like it's just like when the score goes higher, the computer starts doing that thing. So basically that's the idea I get.
Yeah. Right. Great answer. Anyone else? Whatever comes to your mind, just speak that out.
Machine learning refers to feeding certain data sets to the computer and generating relevant outputs from it.
Yeah, great answer. So as you guys said, machine learning is basically you both of you mentioned data. So the main thing in machine learning is data. The machine learning algorithm, what machine learning algorithm do is they feed on the data. Like machine learning is very similar to human learning. Suppose if I take an example of a child, like how he learns to walk. First he tries, then he falls, then he tries again. So by trying that doing the same task again and again, and by recognizing what are the problems he is facing, and then working on them. So this is how a machine learning algorithm works. We try to feed in the data, and then machine learning algorithm tries to predict the outcome. But initially the performance is very bad. So that every time it trains itself, the error is minimized. So that is the main idea of machine learning. I'm not here to make you cram this definition of machine learning or something, but I want to build an intuition. Like through all these slides, we'll see how machine learning algorithms learn from the data, how they extract some patterns from that data. Okay, and will also see how machine learning is different from the traditional programming, like the rule-based programming, which is the major, which still majorly consists of almost all the code and programs. So before that, before we dive right into how machine learning works, let's play a game. So all of you can download this crowdsource app. It is available on web also, but I would recommend if you download it on your phone. Tanav, can you send the crowdsource link in the chat so that participants can download it? And when you'll open crowdsource app, Google has implemented multiple machine learning models into this app, and at the same time, it collects data from the users and feeds that into the machine learning pipeline of Google ML algorithms. So we'll see how they're working. Tanav, can you please send the crowdsource link in chat? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Link has been shared.
Okay, thanks. So please try to download this app on your phone, because I think the web version is not as good as the mobile version. That's why. So try opening the app, and then you'll see a smart camera task there. What smart camera does is it basically shows you a live feed, and it runs Google's machine learning models. Whenever it sees an object, it tries to identify what that object is via object recognition and multiple algorithms. So first of all, I want you guys to try out that app. Share your experience. Like, was it able to recognize the objects which you pointed it at, and is it working properly or not? Whenever you are done, just raise your hands. So Abhinav Singh has raised his hand. So Abhinav, can you share your experience? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Just a second. Yeah, Abhinav, can you please share your experience? Okay, Tanav has also raised his hand. Can you share your experience, Tanav?
Yeah, I tried checking it out on my laptop as well as my phone, and it gave a pretty accurate image recognition.
Yeah. So basically, what this smart camera app is doing is, smart camera task is doing is, it's like on the back end, it is running a machine learning algo and object detection algorithm, and then trying to recognize these objects. Like if you can see on my screen also, uh, here's an example where this model was not able to perform that well. This was an Android sign, Android symbol, and when like just a second. Yeah, if you see, the app shows it is a vase. So there are still imperfections. There still machine learning is not like doesn't produce accurate results all the time. It can be wrong. It can be produce misleading results. But that's the main reason why this crowdsource app has come into place, because crowdsource app enables Google to gather data from all around the world, and by gathering more and more data, they are able to improve their machine learning algorithms. For example, the a machine learning algorithm is as good as the data it is trained on. So what I mean by that line is, the better the data you provide to a machine learning model, it will be easily able to like gain insights or find patterns from that data. The better it will produce those results. For example, suppose if I try to if I create a machine learning model to suppose if I create an image classification model which recognizes food items, and I have trained it on a data set, and that data set it is from North America, right? So if I train the model on North America's food items, and then I try to run that model in India. So suppose if I point it towards an Indian food item, for example, uh, chapati or like Indian cuisine items, it will not be able to perform that well, because it was not the model hasn't seen that data before. So that's the reason, the main motive behind gathering more and more data is to create diversity, and that diversity will help in increasing the accuracy and stability of the model. So now let's move further. Can anybody tell how, I think some of you have used the app now. So can anybody tell how this model might be working? Like how is it able to recognize those objects?
It might convert the images into black and white shade and then compare it with certain figures or the mathematical calculations.
I think it should it converts the images into like triangles and squares, and like gonna find the distance between different objects and color. Like there was a distance between this object and that object. I think that's how it recognizes it.
Yeah, Nikhil, I think you are talking about image processing a bit. That is also a main thing in the ML pipeline and the image classification models. We have to do some kind of processing. But yeah, that is not the only thing which it is doing. But yeah, you are right. Anyone
Sir,
else would like to take? Yeah.
sir, it would be comparing the image given by us to the previous one taken from everybody who is using the app and comparing if the answer given is right or wrong.
Yeah,
It
as
should
Ayush
have a
said,
separate database like it.
yeah, as Ayush said, this is what happens. So basically, since what machine learning model does is, if I am making a simple model of face recognition, if a face is present or not. So I will train it on two kinds of images. One in which a face is present, and the other in which a face is not present. So whenever after the model has trained, whenever a new frame comes, for example, if I'm testing that model, then what it does is it tries to find similarities between what it is seeing. Like, was it similar to the faces images, or was is the new frame similar to the images in which face was not present? So this is what happens in an image classification model. There are multiple types of machine learning models. For example, language models, NLP, but here, like the example you just saw and the example I talked about is from computer vision, where we deal with images. Okay, so now let's move forward. So here's another game. It's known as Quick Draw. Tanab, can you please share the link for Quick Draw also in the chat? And I will also show you guys on my screen as well. Yeah. So basically, on the back end, a neural network model is running. What we have to do is, as it says, draw a bulldozer in under 20 seconds. So I'm not that good at drawing, but I'll try. Let's see if
I see line,
able to
or
recognize
knee,
that.
or lipstick, or shovel, or hourglass. I see diamond, or flashlight, or computer. Oh, I know, it's bulldozer.
Let's try it again.
I see bench, or square, or bread, or bucket, or lipstick. Oh, I know, it's French fries.
So as you guys saw, when I draw a bulldozer, it was able to recognize it. When I drew French fries, it was able to recognize it. So just a second. Yeah. So can somebody tell like how this was working? First of all, you try this on your side and then share your feedback. So let's wait for a few minutes. Let everybody try this quick draw. Then we'll see what was your experience. And whenever you are done, please raise your hands. Okay, so I see a few hands. The participation is very less. There are 66 people here, but only 2 or 3 of them have raised their hands. See, as I told in the beginning, I want the session to be a two-way session. Like, if I will be only speaking, then I don't know if you are getting what I'm saying or not. So, like, if more and more people will try to interact, it will be better for you as well. Okay, so I see a few hands now. Harshita, would you like to share your experience?
Yes, sir. It was quite interesting, the game.
Yeah. Would you like to would you like to answer how you think this game is working?
Sir, I think it works just like we play Pictionary. Like when someone draws it, we try to guess each and everything. So there are some set data into the computer, and it is trying to guess everything which is looking like that.
Yeah, right. Nikhil, what's your take on this?
So actually, it actually gives a lot of data. Like I tried a face actually in this one, and it like guessed a lot of things and face also, but it couldn't confirm it. So like I think it didn't have much data about like the data about a face, but like my drawing was not very good, I think.
Yeah, actually, as I said, machine learning models can fail because every time because they are just guessing. It's not like traditional programming where you get the accurate answer. Like for a problem, you get the exact answer. here multiple answers are possible. So this is, I would say, a game of probability. So that's why machine learning models always fail. Like if there are always outliers because of which a machine learning model can fail. Outlier is a term which I will explain you a bit later during the session. Okay, so now let me tell you. Let me ask you one thing. When you guys were drawing on the quick draw, if you would have noticed, it was when you were drawing simultaneously, it was predicting below what it thinks that was, right? If you would have noticed, like when I was drawing a bulldozer, I drew a line and it said, I see a line. Like how many guys did notice this?
I noticed.
Yes, sir, I
Yeah.
noticed.
Yes, sir.
So basically, like, just a second, let me open that again. So let's okay, I have to draw a key. So suppose I draw a line, and then I draw another.
I see line.
So
Or string beam.
as I have drew a line,
Or garden hose.
simultaneously it is showing what it thinks I have drawn. Now, if I draw this as well,
I see toothbrush.
it's saying
Or
that
arrow.
it sees the toothbrush.
Or
Now,
spoon.
I see this. So,
Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
yeah. So what's happening is basically this model is trained on a huge data set of handwritten drawings. So whenever I'm drawing something, that thing is given as an input to the model. Whenever I draw another input, that the whole drawing at that time is given as an input to that neural network. So every input I give, the model provides an output for that. So in real time, it is recognizing what I'm drawing. So I know this might be a little bit complicated, but then again, let me give you a real world example and you would be able to relate better. As I told you, when a child learns to walk, so he tries to walk and then he fails again. So, or let me ask you this thing. Suppose, as it's saying, draw a chair. So, but the steps you would take to draw a chair are, you would first draw a line, then again draw some more lines, and then connect those lines, right? So that is how machine learning model also learns. So this, let me show you the data it is trained on. So then you would be able to relate it with better. So this is the kind of data on which this deep learning model was trained. So as you can see, there are numerous ways people drew this is the data of carrots. So there are numerous ways people drew carrots. Tarab, can you please send the quick draw data link in the chat so they can try it out. So when people try to draw a chair or a carrot on their own, everyone has a different style of drawing. Everyone has different steps through which they reach to the end drawing or the output. So machine learning model learns how everyone is drawing that, like the steps everyone is taking to draw that thing. So suppose when I wanted to when I was making French fries, first I drew a rectangle. It said the model predicted it was a rectangle. So it is learning the steps. The model is trying to learn the steps it takes to reach to the French fries drawing. So are you getting what I am trying to say? What I'm trying to say here is, like, machine learning model works in a similar way as the human brain works. When we try to draw something, when we follow some steps. So machine learning model also follows some machine learning or deep learning model also follows some steps and it identifies those steps to reach the output. So that is what is happening on the backend. If this makes sense, then please raise your hands or say yes, something.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Everything clear.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes.
if anyone has any doubt at any point of time, feel free to interrupt me in between. Okay, or you can raise your hands. So now let's see. We all have seen and we have been taught in colleges from a long time that the rule-based programming. Examples of rule-based programming can be anything like finding any algo, any sorting algorithm, any like if you want to print a list of Fibonacci series or prime numbers, these all are based on rule-based programming. But where machine learning, how machine learning programming is different from rule-based programming is the type of there are some type of problems which cannot be solved by rule-based programming. For example, if you see on this slide, you can see there are numerous ways people have drawn carrots, right? So if I want to solve the problem of like I draw a carrot and I want to write a program which tells if it is a carrot or not. So if I try to solve this problem via rule-based programming, so let me first tell you the steps we follow in a rule-based programming. First, we frame the goal, what we want to achieve, the output we want to get. For example, let's say here the output I want to get is if the thing I drew is a carrot or not. The second step is designers or basically programmers write the logic for that. For example, when you want to print Fibonacci series, you know how to frame Fibonacci series and you write a logic for that, and then you refine. The third step is refining until goals are met. Refining here, I would say like the second years and third year people will be better able to relate with refining because I think you must have learned dynamic programming or optimization methods in your I think DA course, design and analysis of algorithm course. So what we try to do is we always want to optimize our algorithms. For that, suppose if I have written an n square algorithm, I would like to move to a n log n approach for better time complexity. So what I am trying to say here is refining in rule-based programming is based on algorithms or based on time complexity. Like we only have to create, develop or adapt to a better algorithm, right? I would compare this to when I will compare this to machine learning programming, then you will get the idea. So first tell me, let's get back to our problem. I drew a carrot and I want to create a program that tells if I have drawn a carrot or not. So can anybody please tell from the audience like how we can solve this problem via rule-based program? Like what logic can we write or what steps can we take? Anyone?
We can like write to check the size of the triangles there and like how many triangles are there, like and what is the proportion of them, how many lines are there, and
Yeah.
what is the size of it,
Yeah, right.
color of it.
Yeah, right. Anyone else?
Like we can write a program that the shape must be in a cone and having a leaf on the top.
Yeah, right. So like if I try, like we can solve this via rule-based programming, but if you see, like if you see this carrot, right? You can see my mouse pointer, right? No, or this one. The in the fifth last column, second row here. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
this is an example. Like somebody has drawn a carrot like this. So the type of rules which is said, it must be a cone. It should have leaves on the top, or it should have some lines like that. But if you can see, he has also this person has also drawn something else other than that. So here our rule-based programming will not work because there is something which is not matching. Whenever we try to like write a rule-based program, if you can see, it is generally based on conditions. It is conditional programming. Like if this is the condition, then do this. If this is the input, then do this and print this. Okay, like that. So as the conditions you guys mentioned, like there should be a cone, there should be a triangle, there should be a leaf. Even if I write more than 10, 15, 20 conditions, still there would be some outliers. So as I said, I would be explaining the term outlier a little bit later. What I meant by outlier is outlier by outlier, outliers are some examples in the data which are not able, which a model is not able to fit, basically on which a model is not able to provide accurate results, where the model fails. So those points are called outlier. For example, here we are talking about rule-based programming. If I write a program including all those conditions, if it has triangle, then move forward. If it has lines, move forward. If it has red color, move forward. It has leaves, move forward. And then print it is a carrot. But still, it would fail on this case, right? So there are so many ways of drawing a carrot. There can be so many different methods that rule-based programming will not work, because there are many problems. Like real-world problems are like this only. There are so many ways possible to solve a problem that we cannot mention all the rules. Even if we try, then still there are still outliers, because of which we will not be able to write a rule-based program. So for these kind of tasks, this is where machine learning comes to play, because now let's come to machine learning based programming. So first, let me tell you the steps. The first step is frame the goal of the product. It is same as the rule-based programming. Like you have a question, you should know what you want, basically what the output is. Then the second step is train a model. Here the second step was designers and engineers develop flow and logic. Here it is training a model. So by training a model, what we are doing is we have to provide the data. Yes, engineers have to do that, but a model will train itself. And by training, what do I mean is, when training, what a model does is it extracts some patterns, some features from that data automatically. For example, let me give you an example. If I want to check if a point lies on a line, so I know the coordinates of that point. I know the equation of the line, and I can write a rule-based program to check that. Basically, I'm writing the logic. Okay, but in machine learning programming, what happens is the coefficients of the equation. Machine learning is also based on pure mathematical and statistical concepts, but like in these kind of problems, the equations are so difficult that we cannot observe them or we cannot formulate them ourselves. So in machine learning, we give the input, we give the data, we give the output, and then machine learning algorithm automatically tries to find those coefficients which fits into the equation, right, and the equation which will find the result. So basically, we don't have to form the equation. It will automatically try to formulate the equation which will get you to the answer. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now let me complete the third step also. Here, by refining, what we were doing is we were improving the algorithm, we were improving the time complexity. But in machine learning, by refining, what we do is, as I said, there will always be outliers. Always the machine learning model will not be able to work properly. So outliers, in refining step, what we do is we train the model on those outliers also. We try to bring in more data so that our model can become diversified. If you see this example, the model, and if you go to this link as well, you will find many such examples. So when we try to give more and more data, when we try to like increase the size of our data set, what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to minimize the number of outliers our model can get. What we are trying to do is if our model has seen a huge number of examples, there are very less possibilities that a new example which might come into test data is not similar to those, because a machine learning model like is not able to work properly when it sees a new kind of data. So by increasing the data set size during the training process, we try to minimize the number of outliers our model can get, and increase the accuracy of our model. right? So, did you guys get how machine learning is different from rule-based methods? The main intuition. What in rule-based, what we had to write the equations, we had to write the rules, we had to write the logic ourselves, and then we had to improve it ourselves. In machine learning, we just have to provide the data. We have, yes, we have to write some code, but it will automatically find those patterns, some insights from that data, and then it will give you the output. So this is the main difference between machine learning and rule-based programming. Okay. So now let's move forward and let's see, were you guys able to get what I have were you guys able to get the differences between rule-based approach and machine learning? So here we'll be doing a bit of a Q&A session. There are on the left hand side you will see some tasks. On the right hand side, as you guys can see, there are only two options, and you have to tell whether this task belong to, like, how can we solve this task by rule-based method or machine learning. So I want a raise of hands on every question, and then I will pick a few names and let's see. You also have to tell why you think that this particular task has to be solved by this particular approach. All right. So alphabetizing a list of song titles. How do you think we should move forward with this problem? A rule-based approach or machine learning approach? Okay, so Harsh Pratap, what do you think?
Sir, I think it should be rule-based approach because it will always follow a certain set of rules to alphabetize a list.
Okay.
And if it is not followed, the list won't be alphabetized.
Okay. And let's see what others have to say. Abhishek.
I think it should be rule-based approach because when we will be alphabetizing the list, it will be more precise with the rule-based approach rather than machine learning.
Why do you
Since
think it would be more precise?
because
Like, why do you think?
it will follow a set of rules to to alphabetize the list. That's why, rather than machine learning, which would compare it to other examples.
Yeah. So as you guys are saying, you both of you are right. Like alphabetizing is a very simple task, and because we just have only 26 letters in English language, and even a simple sorting algorithm can do the trick. So creating a machine learning model, feeding it data, like we don't need a huge amount of data to do this, right? And this is not a problem in which we cannot formulate all the rules. We just have to write a sorting algorithm. There are only 26 letters. So I think it would be rule based. So yeah, you guys are right. Ranking web search results. What do you think? Okay, hands have gone down. Nikhil, what do you think?
So I think it should be rule based, like in more of the when we have websites for especially because it can like read the how many people are coming. So like it can arrange in that order, like how many people are visiting that particular website. So like if a particular website has more visitors, then it can like rank it upwards. And like in sorts of images, I think both can be used. Because in like images, I think I'm not too sure about imaging, but website I think will be best.
Okay. First of all, because I'm seeing a very little participation, let me tell you, like you can say whatever you want. I'm not judging you. I'm not marking you. Like this is an open session. Even if there are no right or wrong answers here, because uh, many of these tasks can be achieved by both. What I want here is I want to get your views. Like, what do you think? Because I want to build an intuition. Like, I want, if you are wrong, I will correct you, because this will guide you when you will go into the field of machine learning or data science. You should know, like, is this when you are working on a problem, you should know, is this problem really should need a machine learning solution, or we should go the other route, rule-based route, because generally machine learning solutions require like they are a bit complex than rule-based, and they require a lot of computing power. All right, so I want to like guide you how like you should know when to apply rule-based and when to apply machine learning. So there are no right or wrong answers. Just feel free to share your views. Arya, what do you think?
The rule-based approach, as mostly the ranking is based on a single criteria, so a set of rules can be applied in every case, and there will be no exception.
Okay. So let me tell you. Basically, ranking web search results. So you guys are not wrong. Your answers are good. We can use rule-based approach as well. And initially, when Google search came, it was rule-based only. There was no machine learning algorithm used initially. But the thing is, if we are ranking the results based on, as someone said, based on the number of people who are clicking on that website, and that website should come on top. But nowadays the thing is, not there are so many features based on which we have to rank the web search results. Not only based on the number of visitors, not only based on the frequency of visitors, but there are many things like we also have to group web search results. For example, there are many topics. For example, entertainment, music, or technology, science. So based on that also, other than grouping, there are many things which come into play. So based on the number of features, we have to check if we should go with rule based or machine learning approach. It also depends on our output, like what are we trying to achieve. If we only want based on the like if you only want to rank the web search results based on the number of people who are interacting with it, then we can definitely use rule based approach. But I think if you have more features. For example, as of now, like now Google search uses rule based, but it uses a combination of both. For some specific task, rule based will do the trick, but nowadays the data is so much and the number of features on which the ranking depends are huge. So machine learning has all is also used. So you can use either rule based or machine learning based on the output you want, like based on the conditions you want, how you want to rank those results. Predicting housing prices based on location. What do you think? I think this should be a quick one. Yeah, Nikhil.
Machine learning, of course, because like you have like a lot of sample set, like which is good location, because you cannot really decide a rule like you can to price the houses. Now, like, if a lot of people have bought the house, like you have a lot of data, like which house would have like how much price and stuff.
Okay. Swati, go ahead.
Sir, I think machine learning will be the right answer because predicting a house, it have different features like pricing, then location and other basic necessities, and that is why machine learning.
Yeah, actually, here if we just want to predict based on location, then rule based can be used. But the thing is, nowadays, whenever we try to predict, whenever let's suppose if you want to go buy a house, you will consider many features: the location, the direction of the house, is it sea facing, is it in a good colony or not, the size of the house, and many factors. So a programmer cannot consider all the factors which comes to your mind, right? If we directly want if you just want to get an estimate of the price based on the size of the house, then rule based can be used. Like if it is 100 square feet, this is the price. If it is 500 square feet, this is the price. But since there are so many features on which the housing price depends. For example, the same area house in a colony can cost a particular amount, and that same area house in a metropolitan city in a other type of colony can cost a different amount. So there are multiple features or factors which we need to consider. So I think machine learning would be the better answer here, but definitely depends on the way you want to predict, the way you want the output. So there are no right or wrong answers here. Processing of online payments.
Sir, I think machine learning will be the right answer because predicting the housing, it have different features like pricing, then location and other basic necessities, and that is why machine learning.
Okay. Come on, I want to see more hands. Like again and again, only those people are.
Rohan,
Yeah.
when we say processing online payments, what actually we mean?
Okay, yeah, good question. I was expecting this question here because processing can mean multiple things. Because, for example, processing can just mean processing. For example, redirecting to like if I'm doing a card transaction, then redirecting to the bank's website and then checking the authorization process, checking other things. This can be processing, or processing can be like as now many players have come into fraud detection stuff, or like detecting fraud in online payments. So this can also be a different kind of processing. But here I'm talking about normal processing, like when you go to the ATM, you insert a card and your payment is processed. Or you are doing net banking, you enter the credentials and you do the payment. I'm talking only that kind of processing here. Okay, so Abhishek, go ahead.
So I think it should be a rule-based approach because during that processing, if we transfer some amount, and then it should show a message or a prompt should be there that this much amount has been transferred from a bank account or this is the transaction number. And for that, we need some rule-based approach to give that specific outputs rather than machine learning databases, which may not be that specific for that.
Okay. Nikhil, what do you think?
So rule-based approach because we have to like follow a particular set of only a particular set of rules, like a particular set of procedures, like only a limited amount of them. Like rule-based can do.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil. So you guys are right. Since we are only dealing with the processing part, the simple processing part, like the authorization stuff and redirecting stuff. So rule-based approach should be used. But definitely, as Shubhankar was asking, what kind of processing are we talking about? If we are doing fraud detection stuff, then I think machine learning has to be used because it depends on multiple features. Classifying an object in a photo. I think this should be fast and everybody should respond on this one. Okay, Arpit, go ahead.
Sir, it would be machine learning.
Okay. Khushi.
It should be machine learning because it may be changing the alignment of an photo, and there are many factors that can affect a photo. So maybe machine learning.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely, you guys are right. This will be machine learning because when we are classifying an object in a photo, there are many things we have to consider. We can't write, as we saw the carrot example. It's just like that only. Okay. So now let's do a fast recap of rule-based versus machine learning approach. As you know, like as I said, rules are defined. We have to define the rules. We have to do the improvements, and we have to improve the algorithms, the time complexity. But in machine learning, the learning process is basically automatic. We just feed in the information, we feed in the data. Machine learning algorithm automatically learns. So this is the main crux of machine learning, which I wanted to give you based on these comparisons. That machine learning automatically extracts something from the data, like some important features from the data, and then based on that, it categorizes multiple inputs into different outputs. Okay, which was not possible in rule-based programming, which is simply not possible in rule-based programming. That is why more and more companies and more programs are starting to include machine learning and data science algorithms into their products. And for example, Google, I think, has machine learning algorithm for almost every product in use. For example, from its data centers, from Assistant, from Lens to everything, from optimizing the drive storage also. So now everybody is moving towards machine learning algorithm, and this revolution has taken place because of the technology. Like technological advancement has allowed us to basically be a part of this revolution. So now let's see, we know, now you guys know what machine learning is and how it is different from the traditional programming. So now let's see how we can implement machine learning, like how we can implement these these type of algorithms into real world products. So let's see a short video.
Suppose you have a great business idea and you've already gone through the effort to frame it as a machine learning problem. What next? How does your idea become a working machine learning solution? The process has 3 phases: data, modeling, and production. In the data phase, you identify the input data that your machine learning system needs to make successful predictions. Data may come from databases, log files, web pages, and even other machine learning systems. Once you identify data inputs and sources, you use statistical tools to draw insights about the data. The better you know your data, the more useful hypotheses you can make. Data rarely comes in an ideal state. Data needs to be collated, possibly by joining different data sources, and cleaned for the machine learning model to work optimally. Cleaner data results in better predictions. For a machine learning problem, you start with the input data and convert it into features. Features are key properties of the data. For a supervised machine learning problem, you transform the outcome into labels. Labels represent the intended output of the machine learning system. Joining data sources, cleaning the data, and engineering the features and labels takes time. Plan on spending a large portion of your time in the data phase. Modeling phase. Along with the features and labels, you set up the kind of machine learning system needed, called the model. Researchers have created all sorts of machine learning models, from simple to complex. Some models classify data. Other models predict numeric values. Tools like Google's TensorFlow support many types of machine learning models for various uses. Before a model can make predictions, it needs training, which is like sending the model to school. First, there are lessons to learn from the data. Along the way, there are quizzes to check knowledge and correct any misunderstandings. In the end, there's a final exam. When training the model, you split the data into 3 sets: training, validation, and test. The training set corresponds to lessons. Here, the model processes data for the first time. It starts to infer patterns in the data to help make predictions. After you've trained the model once, you quiz it using the validation set. Based on how well the model does on the quiz, you may decide to adjust the model settings, or hyperparameters, which are like dials and switches for changing the model's behavior, and retrain the model again to give it the quiz again. The goal is to iteratively find settings that provide the best model quality on the validation set. When the model meets your success criteria, it's time for the final exam. Feed your model the test set. If the model predicts well, it passes the course and is ready for real use. Once your ML system is ready for the world, it's time to move the system into production. For starters, your system may need integration into a product. You need to figure out what this integration looks like and whether your model interacts with users. Models may need retraining on a regular basis with new data to pick up on new patterns or trends. This training could come from new data sets or from interactions with users. The system means tracking system outages, errors, data processing volume and speed, and how successfully it predicts results. Machine learning systems also require maintenance. As with any production system, this means fixing bugs, adding features that didn't make it into version 1, and the like. Machine learning specific maintenance could include testing other models and settings to see if performance improves.
Okay, so I think the video was self-explanatory in itself, but like this video included many things, so it might have been a little bit overwhelming for the beginners. So let me present you a crux of the video. Basically, there are simply 5 to 6 steps in a machine learning pipeline. First, as rule based, we should know what we want. We should know the output, the goal, what we want to achieve. Then, based on the user's needs, we have to define the objective. Like this will be the input, this will be the output, and then when we know the inputs and outputs, then we'll start working on the modeling process and the data feeding process. When we know this is input, this is output, so based on those input points, the inputs are known as features. So based, we have to collect those features, and we have to like collect the as much as data possible. For example, the data should be a representative of the output. Okay, so as I mentioned that example, for example, you were creating a food classifier which was trained on North American dishes, but I try to use that in India. But so definitely the model will fail because it has not seen those examples during its training process. So the collection of data is a very major task. And other than that, before the collection of data and training the model, like between third and fourth step, this is where you will be a machine learning engineer spends most of his time, because we cannot just provide raw data to a model. The data has to be cleaned, the data has to be pre-processed, and by pre-processed I mean there are multiple algorithms, there are multiple things, like basically suppose when you are doing a course, okay, and if like you want to learn a topic and you directly take the course which is like very long, very complex, and includes many equations like that. Before getting the idea of the topic, you directly jump onto the complex part. So it will be very difficult, like you will get the idea, but it will be very difficult for you to implement that, right? To get to the results. For example, you are learning calculus. So before getting the intuition of calculus, you directly jump onto the problems, then you will not be able to reach the output, right? So this is how it is with the machine learning models as well. We have to clean the data, we have to pre-process the data in such a way so that machine learning model can extract insights from that data, because many a times noise is also present in the data, so we have to take care of that, because otherwise the machine learning model will also learn on that noise and become, like there's a term, overfitting, but I will not mention that here because this is a beginner course. So like what I want to say is, between the third and fourth step, this is where the most time goes, because training a model is not that of a difficult part per se, but like the collection and optimizing the data for our machine learning model is where the most focus should be, and it is the most time taking part. Then once we train our model, we test that. So as in the video also they mentioned, like it is like a student passing an exam. He learns, then he gives an exam. It is given a grade. If the grade is bad, he has to reappear for the exam, right? And when reappearing, he will like try to learn some new things again. So this is the process of training a machine learning model. We try to make the model better by training it again and again on the examples on which it did not perform well, and then this is how a model is optimized or refined. So finally, when the model is ready, based on our needs, like we set a threshold, we need this much accuracy, or like basically it is fulfilling our needs and our output. So then we think, we say that our machine learning model is ready, and then we predict it, and like we use it in production and use it to evaluate on real world data. But as you see, after the fifth step, there is again an arrow towards collection on the third step, that is collect data. That this backward arrow shows the iterative nature of machine learning algorithms, because whenever you suppose you created a model, it is good for your needs, it is good according to you, but when you put that model into production, it might not perform well, because there can be outliers, there can be such data which it has not seen, or there might be other problems. So that's why we again and again have to tune our model. If we have less data, if we have outliers, then we have to feed in those data points as well. So this is basically the machine learning process, like giving in data and training again. So That's the crux. So now let's see another video. Before the video, let me clarify a few things. It is a common conception, whenever we try to solve a problem, like if we just Google it, we Google a question, we find an answer, and we assume it to be true. It is likewise in other types of programs as well. Suppose you have created a program for something, then it is giving you an answer, and you assume it is correct. But there are some times when the answer is correct according to you, because in real world problems the answers might differ based on perceptions of different people. For example, you can believe something to be correct, but that thing might not be correct or as good according to someone else. For example, you are creating an app, suppose, for recommending something, right? For recommending some products. So, and you have created the program, it is recommending products well according to you, but some third person or your friend might come and say, like, I don't want, for example, let's take an example of Amazon only. Your recommendations are different from someone else's recommendations, right? So the view, the perspective of everyone, each person is different. So that is why there's something called human bias. And whenever humans try to program something, whenever humans try to make something, it is evidently a part of their program as well. So now let's see this video and you will get a better.
Let's play a game. Close your eyes and picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about this? We may not even know why, but each of us is biased toward one shoe over the others. Now imagine that you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a shoe. You may end up exposing it to your own bias. That's how bias happens in machine learning. But first, what is machine learning? Well, it's used in a lot of technology we use today. Machine learning helps us get from place to place, gives us suggestions, translates stuff, even understands what you say to it. How does it work? With traditional programming, people hand code the solution to a problem, step by step. With machine learning, computers learn the solution by finding patterns in data. So it's easy to think there's no human bias in that. But just because something is based on data doesn't automatically make it neutral. Even with good intentions, it's impossible to separate ourselves from our own human biases. So our human biases become part of the technology we create in many different ways. There's interaction bias, like this recent game where people were asked to draw shoes for the computer. Most people drew ones like this. So as more people interacted with the game, the computer didn't even recognize these. Latent bias. For example, if you were training a computer on what a physicist looks like, and you're using pictures of past physicists, your algorithm will end up with a latent bias, skewing towards men. And selection bias. Say you're training a model to recognize faces. Whether you grab images from the internet or your own photo library, are you making sure to select photos that represent everyone? Since some of our most advanced products use machine learning, we've been working to prevent that technology from perpetuating negative human bias. From tackling offensive or clearly misleading information from appearing at the top of your search results page, to adding a feedback tool in the search bar so people can flag hateful or inappropriate autocomplete suggestions. It's a complex issue and there's no magic bullet, but it starts with all of us being aware of it so we can all be part of the conversation. Because technology should work for everyone.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So this video talks about some types of biases, human biases, but this is not an exhaustive list. There are many more types of biases which can come into a system which we try to build, a machine learning system or any other system per se. So we definitely have to take care of that. And if you guys like have seen, I'm not sure, but like I think some of you guys would have seen the new feature in the new Pixel 6 Pro, the Google's phone. There in their keynote, they talked about that the most of the smartphones from the West are like biased towards the West users, like the Americas. So whenever you try to click a photo, because nowadays most of the phones do some kind of processing after you click that photo. So that processing was also biased on American faces, or I would say West faces. Like it would try to make like a dark skinned person more like towards the white tone. So this time Google took this like issue in their keynote, mentioned this issue in their keynote, and then they have used some machine learning algorithms. Like they said that they diversified their data. They took skin tones from all over the world and then tried to uh, tweak their processing based on that. So, like this human bias thing is real and it happens to everyone. But the thing is, it goes unnoticed by ourselves because, like we cannot notice our own bias, right? So that's the thing. But these are some things which definitely have to be taken care of. And now let's talk about privacy. This is again one of the major things which every person, like every engineer or programmer should take care of, because when dealing in machine learning we are dealing with data, and generally that data comes from different people, and we have to take care of the privacy of those people. Now let's see the video and you will get a better idea.
Machine learning
Sorry, just a second.
Machine learning systems require lots of data to make successful predictions. What happens when that data is sensitive, such as people's names, credit card numbers, or medical histories? Sometimes, sensitive data is needed to train a model so it can make accurate predictions. But at the same time, this data must be carefully protected. This is the challenge of machine learning privacy. Let's look at an example. Suppose you create a machine learning model to diagnose illnesses based on a person's symptoms. Someone who reports a stuffy nose and a cough might receive the diagnosis the common cold, whereas someone else with the same symptoms plus a high fever might be diagnosed with the flu. Plenty of other factors might influence the diagnosis too. Does the patient have a medical history of similar symptoms? Did she recently travel to another country or spend time on a farm with livestock? Are other family members or roommates sick at the same time? To train this model, you could feed it information about thousands of people and their symptoms, medical records, and demographic information. This data includes plenty of personal information that needs to be kept private. In addition, the data sets involved might contain other private information not directly relevant to medical diagnosis, such as patient contact information or the credit card numbers used to pay healthcare providers. What steps should you take to protect user privacy? Step 1 is to gather and select only the data that your ML system needs to achieve its goal. The less private data you have in the first place, the less you need to protect. This might seem like common sense, but it takes effort. It's easier to copy a whole database than to spend hours removing the parts that you don't need. Step 2 is to identify any data in your datasets that may be sensitive. For example, people's names, addresses, telephone numbers, email addresses, government ID numbers, and other personally identifiable information, or PII, should be kept private. Another type of private information is user-generated content, such as email messages, YouTube videos, blog posts, and any other content created by known individuals. Be sure to work with your product counsel to determine which types of information are considered private and how to handle them. You also need to make sure you have permission to use the data and whether the data has other privacy restrictions. Be sure to work with your product counsel here as well. Step 3 is to protect the private data. You can do this by controlling access to the data and your ML model, or by altering the data so it's not recognizable anymore, or both. Privacy is a critical concern in machine learning. When you maintain privacy, you build trust with users and protect your company's interests.
Right. So privacy, like as we talked about bias, privacy is again one of the major things which we need to take care of. And nowadays, like more than ever, privacy has become like a great issue. Everyone like is now concerned about their privacy, and they should be. Because companies like the big tech giants like Google, Facebook, Apple, and etc. are using like most of their services which we use like gather data, a load like huge amounts of data, and then they use that data for like processing stuff for recommendation like recommendation engines and etc. But so whenever we as a programmer work with data, we should respect that, and we should respect privacy of other users. Like that might seem like common sense, but the thing is, we whenever we work with data, we like we forget like this bias part and these privacy issues. But the best thing to do is whenever you are working with data, just put them, just put yourself in user shoes. So if you are comfortable sharing that data, if you are comfortable sharing something about yourself with a third party person, then it's fine. But other than that, like privacy, as the video mentioned, we should cut down the amount of data we are using to train our models. That is really very difficult task, because finding like this comes under the cleaning of data. So finding only giving the model only the useful features which you need. So this is one of the major aspects in machine learning pipeline. Now let's see what machine learning can do. What types of problems machine learning can solve, right? Before jumping on to that, these are three terms, arguably the like hyper terms of these days. Like these are the buzz terms which everybody is using, but everybody is not sure, like because most of the people use these terms interchangeably. But let me clear the confusion. One more thing is, like other than these three terms, data science is also one of the buzz terms nowadays. So I'll add that one as well. Artificial intelligence basically means like an intelligence which can mimic human intelligence, exactly the way human brain works. So that is artificial intelligence. But now let's come to machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, because machine learning consists of algorithms which learn on their own, but then we have to provide the data. We have to set the goals. We have to set the parameters of those algorithms. So that is why machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is like totally which can mimic human intelligence. Like if you create a robot, I think Sophia was one robot which claimed to be an AI, and it was revealed 2-3 years back at CES. So artificial intelligence is like when we are capable of doing everything a human brain can do. That thing can be termed as artificial intelligence. But machine learning is a subset which includes some algorithms which learn on their own. Then deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, because deep learning is just a fancy term for deep neural networks. So neural networks is a subset of machine learning algorithms, because in machine learning algorithms, what we do is we generally have an idea of like the type of algorithms we need to solve a problem. But in deep learning, a special section of machine learning is used when we have even less idea about the problem. So then what deep learning does is it formulates the equation on its own, it formulates the coefficients on its own, it finds everything on its own. Like you can think of it like that. Because in machine learning, for example, if you are using linear regression, I will tell you what regression is. If you are using linear regression, is basically a model. So when you are doing linear regression, you know, given a data, you know you have to use linear regression on that data. then the coefficients of those equations will be formulated on its own by machine learning algorithms. But deep learning is used when you don't even know what you have to apply. So deep learning can formulate everything on its own, but definitely it comes at a cost of computation power. So deep learning algorithms are more computationally intensive than machine learning algorithms. Data science fits between artificial intelligence and machine learning because data science also includes many statistical algorithms as well. Okay, so now let's move forward. These three things have made ML possible: big data, algorithms, technology. So let me get this fast as we are running short on time. So before first cover the algorithms part. The algorithms used in machine learning nowadays are ages old. Like before also we were using those algorithms only, but the thing was we had to do the calculations on our own. We had the equations 100 years back, but then they were done on pen and paper. Then let's come to technology. The technological advancement during the past couple of decades has led us to use ML because previously we had the concepts, but we simply didn't have the computation power to run ML algorithms. Third thing, big data. Big data is nowadays every company, every program, every single product you use gathers a huge amount of data. So we have loads of amount of data, a big necessity for machine learning because machine learning models are trained on data. So these three things have come together to make machine learning possible. Like big data, gathering huge amounts of data, which we are doing every single day. Technological advancement has given us the computation power, and algorithms were there before that. So these three things have come together to make machine learning possible today. Now let's see some types of machine learning algorithms. First is classification. So when you saw the smart camera task in the beginning of the slide, it was able to identify some objects. You pointed at an object and it was able to identify that it is a bottle, it is a book or something else. So the thing is, classification, we use a classification model when we know there are some limited classes. For example, that object detection model might have been trained on 80 to 100 classes. For example, it will not recognize everything you pointed at because it was not, for example, I show something, a small leaf. It might recognize a leaf, but I show something which was not present in the data it was trained. So then it will not be able to recognize that. So when we have fixed number of classes, we know our output will be, for example, if you can see on the screen, suppose I'm building wildlife machine learning model. So I know for example, for simplicity, I'm building a animal predictor. So there I will take the data of limited number of animals. For example, I'm only working with cat species, so it is a lion, tiger, house cat, or etc. So when we have fixed number of outputs, then classification is used. Now let's you can see this in action after the session on the crowdsource app. Now let's come to regression. As I mentioned the term linear regression also previously. Regression is used when we want to predict continuous outputs. For example, when you are predicting housing prices, or for example, you can see below, when you are predicting the estimated time of arrival in Google Maps, it uses a regression model because we are predicting time, the time it will take us to arrive at a place, and time cannot be divided into classes, right? Like it is not like that it will take exactly 1 hour or it will take 2 hours or 3 hours. It might take 1 hour and 1 minute, 10 seconds, like that. So when we are predicting a continuous output, our output is not divided into only some classes, like in image classification or in that animal classifier. For example, an animal can only be lion or a cat. Like if I am building only two cats classifier, cat or lion, so it cannot be something in between, right? But in regression, like when I'm going home, so time can take any value, a continuous value. So for these kind of problems, regression is used. Clustering is definitely one of the most important ML algorithms. These are also there are also super categories of these algorithms like supervised, unsupervised, but that will be in intermediate session and the sessions after these two sessions. So that will be covered afterwards. So clustering is used when we have some data, we don't know its classes, but we want to cluster that. For example, in DNA, when creating vaccines, when we provide DNA inputs into the machine learning model, it automatically finds some similarities, some dissimilarities as well, and groups the data on its own. So that is how clustering works, right? Any one of you, if you have any doubt, please interrupt me in between, and then we'll clear that out. So this all of these examples you can try it out, on the crowdsource app. Now sequence prediction. This might seem little common because every day when you are using a keyboard, when you are using slide typing, sequence prediction is used. So sequence prediction also in Smart Reply in Gmail, whenever you type email, it already shows like proactively shows what word should come next, right? So this is an example of sequence prediction. And order is very important in sequence prediction because when you write a sentence, then it learns like first pronoun should come, then this should come, then verb should come, like that. So all of these examples you can try it on the crowdsource app. Now style transfer. This is a very new kind of machine learning or deep learning application, I would say. But nowadays it is gaining a lot of attention. Style transfer in images, as you can see above. For example, I have a turtle image, then I have one painting, and I have like the model has merged them. So kind of mixed their style. It can be applied to anything. It can be applied to text. It can be applied to audio. For example, if I have an English male voice, and then I can create a model which will convert it into English female or Japanese male, or speech to text. So you are converting one thing to another form, speech to text. So these are examples of style transfer. In images, style transfer is generally achieved by GANs, but that is a very advanced topic. So we'll talk about GANs in some further sessions. So again, let's start a Q&A session based on let me see if you gained how much have you gained on types of machine learning algorithms. So let's do it fast because we are running short on time. So what do you think? Raise of hands. What do you think? Recommending Nextword in Android SMS app. What kind of machine learning algorithm should be used? Okay, Himanshu, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sir, it may be sequence prediction.
Yeah, right. As we saw on that keyword example, it is sequence prediction. Labeling email as spam or not spam. Like if you see in Gmail, there is a spam folder. So automatically some of the mails directly come into the spam folder. What kind of ML algorithm should be used? Abhishek, go ahead.
So I think it should be classification.
Okay, Vishal.
Sir, clustering.
Why do you think it should be clustering? Feel free to answer that.
Sir, can't explain, sir.
Okay, no problem. Actually, the thing is, clustering, as you said, like there is no right or wrong answer here. I think you were thinking we can group the emails, the spam emails together, and the emails which were not spam together, right? That's why you thought of clustering.
Yes, sir.
But actually, the thing is, since we have two classes here, like like I said, in clustering we don't know the output. We don't know the groups we want to We don't know the groups we want to group that data into. So this should be classification because we know that either it will be a spam or it will not be spam. So we know we have to define classes. So that's why classification is the correct answer here. Understood? Okay,
Yes, sir.
so identifying trends among a group of people who have bought a new music release. Come on, shoot your answers. Swati, go ahead.
So clustering.
Okay, why do you think so?
So because uh, the trend will divide in the groups of people who have. So that is why.
Yeah. Anybody who thinks otherwise? Okay, so the right answer is clustering, and she explained it well. A bot that reads the news in the voices of famous actors. Abhinav.
Sir, it should be style transfer.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else would like to take this one? Okay, yeah, he was right. It is style. It is an example of style transfer because we are converting news that is text into audio, and then we are giving it a different kind of voice. So it is an example of style transfer. Determining workout activity based on phone movement. Come on, a raise of hands fast. Pratham, go ahead.
It should be sequence prediction.
Okay, can you explain on that?
The sequence of in which the phone movement is detected, it might be used to classify the activity, whether which kind of workout activity it is.
Okay, Abhishek, what do you think?
So I also think that it should be sequence prediction only.
Anybody who thinks otherwise?
Sir, regression.
Why do you think it's regression? Can you please explain?
So phone movement is like not very particular. Like it has like you can divide in magnitude. Like it's not like if you like move the phone for flashlight, like you can move like 1 centimeter here and there. Like the movement of the phone is like not very in a particular style. Like it's like you have to like go for down to those scenarios.
But actually, now let me clarify. I think many of you have doubts regarding this one. They in regression, as you said, we have as I said, we have continuous data. At that time, I was talking about the output, the thing we are predicting. That when the thing we are predicting, the output we are getting is continuous, then we use regression. And
रोहन
when
एक बार
yeah.
क्वेश्चन वापस क्लैरिफाई कर
हाँ ठीक है. So determining workout activity based on phone movement. So what the task here is, suppose when you are your phone tracks your movement during workouts. So suppose initially you start walking, then you start running. So the phone should predict when you are walking, like you are walking, when you are running, like that. When you are doing something, a different activity, let's say jumping, so it should predict jumping. So this is the output we need is walking, running, or jumping, like this. Now shoot your answers. Yeah, Nikhil.
So classification.
Okay. I think he's the only one with raised hand. So yeah, Nikhil, you are right. The answer is classification here because since the output is divided into different classes and we know those classes, right? We know like either like there are set of workout activities. These will be the activities and these are separate activities. So here classification is used. Suppose if there is a different kind of problem where we know we have to group the data, but we don't know explicitly what those classes are, what those groups are. We want the algorithm to find that those groups on their own. Then clustering is used, and regression is used when the output or the thing you want to predict is continuous. So did I make that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So answer here is classification. So these are categories are based on the output we are predicting, right? Not the data we are giving. Identifying famous landmarks in a photo. For example, when you take a photo, all of you I think might have seen Google Lens, right? So whenever you run Lens, it identifies some things. So what do you think it is an example of? Swati, yeah.
Sir, I think classification.
Okay, Nikhil, do you think the same?
So clustering, I think clustering.
Why do you think so?
So like if you are clicking a photo, like there can be many scenarios. Like it might not be the same. Like the monument one, but the monument like looks similar to the original monument, but it might not be the same monument. So like it's like taking pictures of many things. Like it's like it doesn't know like what the thing behind that is. Like the data is like very diversified. I think.
Yeah, so you are like I know like you are thinking right, but the thing is when we are identifying some things, for example, I took a photo of
Can I
Eiffel
add
Tower.
something?
Yeah, definitely.
Sir, I guess the first word we return in this question is identifying a famous landmark. So that is the first process that to collab all the pictures, and then the fact is we have to identify. So identify means we are just classifying the image, the landmarks. So classification may be the answer.
Yes, definitely.
I
Perfect. The answer here is classification only, but let me clarify his doubt. Clustering here, clustering cannot be the answer because I know you said like that the input image can relate to a lot of buildings, but the thing is, the thing we are predicting is buildings. Like we are not like we know. Like we have fixed outputs. For example, if I know buildings can be of thousands of types, hundreds of types, but if I since it is trained on that data of all the buildings, so here it will tell if a building is there or not. For example, it is just like object detection. Take it that way. Suppose I'm doing an I opened that smart camera task only, and then it is trained on some objects. So it identifies that particular object. So there are discrete classes here also. When we are identifying famous landmarks, so there are only some famous landmarks which need to be like identified. So that is why the landmarks are basically the number is fixed, and there are discrete outputs. So that is why classification should be the way to go here. Okay. If it is not clear, you can stay back, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll clear your doubts there. Suggesting spelling corrections. Come on, a raise of hands. The task here is, suppose if I'm writing the word W-O-R-D, but by mistake I write W-E-R-D. So that's the task we are doing. Yeah, Thriti. What do you
Should
think?
it be sequence prediction?
Okay. Why do you think so?
Because just like you said, the keyboard, it has to predict what the next word would be, like we do in Swift typing. We kind of do the same thing, the prompts which we get. So it's determining the possible types of sequences which can be created. And if it's not in one of those, then it would give out that maybe this is the correct option.
Okay. Anybody who has a different answer? Okay, so actually the answer here is clustering, because in sequence prediction we were not the thing is uh, we were predicting the next word. Okay, so if I'm writing a sentence, hey, hello, how are you, or good evening, let's meet today evening. So if I'm writing a sentence like this, so it will, if I write let's meet today, then it will predict either morning or evening. I'm just giving an example. But so the most of the words which the model has seen in that are correct words. Okay, so it is trying to predict the next word in sequence, because in sequence prediction you are considering the whole sequence, the sentence as a whole, not just a single word. Okay. So sequence prediction is used for just determining the next step in the process. Then if we have to check if it is correct or not, then clustering is used. I know it is a bit of like difficult one, because there are some models in NLP, like natural language processing, which cluster some words based on emotion or sentiments. For example, it will cluster all the good word, all the like good sounding words, happy sounding words, or bad sounding, negative sounding words, like that. So here what we are trying to do is, whenever you write a word, if that is misspelled, the thing is, we can create a clustering model which will try to group the correct spelling words and wrong spelling words. So if the word you wrote is not related to that, if it is different from that group, basically from the correct spelling words, then it can show you suggestions. So that is why clustering is here the correct answer.
Rohan,
Yeah.
when we do classification here, we collect some correct spellings and collect some wrong
Yeah.
spellings for the same word,
Yeah.
then feed them character by character.
Yeah. Definitely, but the thing is, we can definitely do classification, but it will not be like we will not be able to apply that into real world, because since there are, like, I don't know how many number of words are there. So if you are doing this for each and every word, you are creating a machine learning model for each and every word. That is not like possible, right? So that is why classification cannot be used. That's the thing. Here, like what we can do is, we can create a clustering model which will automatically identify like if the spelling was correct or not. That's the thing. Yeah, Abhinav, do you have a question?
Sir, I think the number of combinations will be increased. That's why we are using clustering. If you use classification, the number of combinations using that alphabet in a word will be increased, and that will be a difficult task for ML.
Yeah, actually that's the main problem with classification. That's why we can't go with classification, because we have so many combinations and we cannot consider each and every combination, and we cannot create a classification model for each and every possible combination. That's the main thing. Okay, so predicting the quality score for an advertisement. I think this should be a quick one. It's not that difficult. Okay, Abhishek, go ahead. I need more hands, guys.
So I think it should be regression.
Okay, Nikhil, what do you think?
Classification.
Okay, Swati, what do you think?
Sir, clustering.
Okay, can each one of you like explain why do you think these answers? First one said regression, then classification, then clustering. Swati, why do you think it's clustering?
Sir, I'm confused. I think classification, because predicting a quality score means we are predicting so we are predicting a score here for an
Yeah, we are
advertisement. So for
predicting a
this we have
score
to
here. For example,
we have
you
to first select. Yes, sir.
I was saying,
May I?
for example, you have an advertisement. You are scoring from 1 to 10. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Then first we have to
evaluate any score.
classify the grades according to the advertisement. So it is classification.
Okay, Nikhil, why do you think it was classification?
Because like we are giving it a particular score, like we're classifying into stuff like it's a good, like the score is good, it's bad, it's very
No,
bad.
actually,
According to
like I
this
said, suppose you are giving a score from 1 to 10. What do you think now?
So then again, like we can no, it's, take the reviews from the like the reviews from the clients. Then like if they're like small, like 7 score, like 8 scores, then we can like classify according to that. Like the scores are more like
Okay,
classified.
I got your point. The way you are thinking is right because like you think like there are discrete classes. First, you thought either we can classify it as good or bad. So then definitely we have to use classification. But the thing is, since we are predicting 1 to 10, so what I meant in the question was it can take any value. For example, 5.5, 6.5. So like you can give it any score. So that is why the answer here is regression. But definitely, as you said, if your values are discrete, if your output is dividable into classes, then definitely classification can also be used. But here regression is the correct answer. Okay, so estimated time of arrival. I think on this one everyone should raise their hands because this was the example we took when we were learning one of the kinds of ML. Okay, Abhishek, go ahead.
So this one should be regression.
Okay, anyone who thinks otherwise? Okay, yeah, the answer is regression here because we are predicting time, which is a continuous value. Translating between two languages. Nikhil.
So that would be like I think style transfer. Sorry, sequence prediction. I think sequence prediction.
Okay, Abhishek, what do you think?
So I agree with it. It should be style transfer because we are converting from one language to another.
Yes, definitely. I think, okay, this was sequence prediction. So actually, there are different things, like different ways to look at it. It can be style transfer also because, as the example I showed you, the English male voice was converted into English female or Japanese male, right? So that can be an example of style transfer also. But here, the answer is sequence prediction because when we are trying to translate, okay, so suppose I have a sentence. So in languages, generally context comes into play. So if you are just converting a single word, okay, then it will not be of that much importance. But when you try to convert a sentence or a paragraph into a different language, then context comes into play. For example, the thing you talked about in the previous paragraph or two sentences back has to be addressed now. And then, like what I'm trying to say here is the whole sequence matters. That order matters because something was mentioned there a particular way. So that thing, that context has to be taken care of. For example, if something like you can also try this as yourself also open Google Translate and try to translate 2-3 lines from English to Hindi. Sometimes the placement of words in both languages is different. That word might appear in the starting of the sentence in English language, and that same word might appear after being translated into Hindi and later like in the last part of the sentence. I have tried this on my own. So that is why here contextual meaning is important. So we have to consider the whole sequence. That is why sequence prediction is the answer here. If you have doubts, you can ask me again after the session. So yeah, so this is gradually like we are coming towards the end of the session. So these are the things we learned. What is ML versus rule based, how it is different from the traditional programming, how we can implement that, the stages, like define our goals, collect the data, clean the data, train the model, and then evaluate. And then again, if the model is not performing well, then refine the model, optimize the model. Then we saw what was the difference between all these terms: AI, machine learning, deep learning, and types of machine learning algorithms. You also got an idea when to apply, in what kinds of problems we have to apply what kind of machine learning algorithms. So this was a bit about today's session. And crowdsourced by Google basically is helping the world making the world a better place every day by gathering huge amount of data, feeding that into the machine learning pipeline of Google machine learning algorithms, and then improving the services and the products we use every day from Google like in the process. So this is something that is why Crowdsource has started this program along with Google AI. So to get more and more people interested into machine learning, and they should know how everything they're using, like almost everything they're using today, for example, Google Lens or Assistant is being used by us every single day. So how those things are working to give an insight into the world of machine learning to everyone. So that is why this program was started, I think, in 2019 and is continued since then. So thanks for attending today's session. As this is a two session series, the second session will be tomorrow. Other than that, this session will be taken up further. Like we will take some more sessions in depth after these two sessions, and we will also invite other clubs like Retesians and anybody who has something to share in this world of machine learning in this domain will be invited. And so, guys, the goal is to make you guys ML ready, right? So this was today's session. Tomorrow the session will not be this long, and tomorrow's session will be a bit more interactive because you guys will be training a neural network on your own without even writing a single line of code. So how exciting is that? So also I would like to mention one more thing. I think all of you guys have filled the pre-event form, right? I think it must have been shared before the along with the event link. Can somebody confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and after these two sessions, you will also receive a post-event link. It will be shared after the second session. So it is essential to fill both the forms. So if you have not done that, please do, because then only you will get the certificates from Google Crowdsource of this Explore ML program. And so let's see you guys in tomorrow's session then. Any feedback for me? Any feedback on the content you would
Can I
like to
ask
say?
something?
Yeah, definitely.
The link which you just mentioned, is it that one which we had to fill while registering for the event?
Can you please clarify which link you are talking about?
You were just saying some link
Pre-event
which
form.
pre-event form, yeah. So
Yeah.
was it the one which we had to fill while registering for this event, or is it?
Actually, when you were doing the RSVP, then you had filled a form. Other than that, a form was also shared in the WhatsApp message, I think. Like I will share.
Yes, sir. It is shared.
Let me share that again. Just a second.
I've shared the link again. You can check it out in the chat box. This was the link that sir wanted you guys to fill.
Yeah, this was the link. Thanks, Tanav. So please fill this form, and after the second session, you will receive a post event form. Then you will get your certificates from Google Crowdsource. So thanks for attending today's session. If anyone has a doubt, I am happy to clear them out, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer your doubts there as well. So it was a nice session.
Sir, is the
So
crowdsource
I
data
have
available to the public?
Sorry, I think my connection there was some issue with my connection. Can you please repeat?
Yeah,
Sir, is
Nikhil, I've
the
shared the thing in the chat box, the data part of it. There's one link of Quick Draw. It's shared. Cloud source isn't, I think.
So I wanted to ask that